Hey everybody, welcome to our Tuesday Fireside Chat. I believe this is our 34th episode of our Fireside Chats, and we're excited. Hunt-Broersma, I think I rolled my R's properly, joining us here in a few seconds. But before we get started, we'll have Gandhi, who's joining us right now, who's one of our, who's our other co-owner. But before we bring Jacky on, just a couple of things. One, if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, do so today, as we will be dropping our best of issue in 1 week from now, which is our digital magazine for the best of 2022. In addition to that, we have a couple of discount codes for you. RTB20 gets you 20% off of Blue 70, and then RTB22 gets you 20% off of SBR Sports as well. And we'll have some pretty cool advertisers coming at you in our up and coming best of issue. So make sure you check them out. We'll get Jacky on here right now. And I know I asked her how to pronounce her name, and I've already kind of screwed up in my head. But I know there's a bunch of rolling R's. But as Jacky joins us, please make sure if you have questions for her, hit the little question mark on the bottom right-hand side and ask her question. And we'll make sure we get that question off to Jacky and answered. I know we've got some pretty exciting news. You want to drop some news to our audience members as we wait for Jacky to join us?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a few requests in the past to move the podcast to the audio format to ears, so you could take it on the trails, on the go, whether you're driving in the car. And as of last night, we officially have an RSS feed, and the first episode of the Run, Try, Bike Fireside Chats is up on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and by next week it'll be on Google as well.
That's pretty exciting. And also, if you have time and you want to watch the videos themselves, they are on YouTube now, all 34 episodes, as well as on our Fireside Chat on our website. And of course, as is wont, Instagram is giving us some wonky scenarios here and getting Jacky invited to the conversation. But hey, I want to remind you guys to there we go.
There we go.
Hey, there we go. Oh, wait. Oh, wait. I need to turn around. There we go.
Perfect.
Oh, yay.
Hey, Jacky, good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you for joining us on our Tuesday Fireside Chats. We really appreciate you taking the time, especially during the holiday season, to chat with us.
No, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So we'll just jump right in. Jacky, when people visit your Instagram account, right across the top, it's an ultra runner, cancer survivor, amputee, and coach. So my first question to you is, when did you become an ultra runner, and why ultra running, not 5Ks or triathlons or anything like that?
I started ultra running, 3 years ago? And it was literally, I signed up for a trail race because I decided I wanted to do trail running, because I got a little bit bored with road running. So I was like, I want to venture into trail running, gave trail running a race. And I literally signed up for a trail race, which happened to be a 40-mile trail race, because that's kind of what I do. I'm like, how hard can that be, right? And and that's just add a few extra miles, right? And that's kind of how it literally started. I just decided to sign up for this race, gave it a shot. It was an interesting race because it was at the time when I was living in North Carolina, and the trails on the East Coast can get really muddy when it's been raining, and which happened to be the race was in October, and there was a storm that had come through. They had to actually redirect part of the course because some of the trails had washed away. That's how much rain had fallen. So going in there with a blade on muddy trails, not being a total experienced trail runner either, and my first ultra was a challenge but fun and didn't scare me, and I kept going.
So what was the longest distance you had run on the road prior to this first trail ultra experience?
It would have been 26.2 miles, so it would have been a marathon before that. And my longest trail run had probably been about, because the trail I used to kind of go out on was about a 4-mile loop that I used to do, and that was kind of it.
So tell us, because I know a lot of us Americans have made the mistake when we look at 42K, which is the marathon distance.
Yeah.
Realizing that, okay, 40 miles. So when you registered for the 40 mile, did you think it was a 42K?
No, I knew it was a 40-mile, unfortunately. But I thought, I don't know, maybe in my head I did think, oh, it's 40, it's going to be 26.2 miles. That's fine. Didn't calculate it. 40 miles, yeah.
I'll put you in the same arena as I am, because I don't read the guides whatsoever. So I know I'd have been like 40 miles, 42K. It's about the same, give or take. We'll be okay.
Yeah, we'll be okay. Yeah, we'll be fine.
So the next thing on your bio says cancer survivor.
Yeah.
So when you got your diagnosis, what was your reaction? And then also, what was your family's reaction to your diagnosis? And before you answer, I'll tell you a personal story. So I was 21 years old and it was graduation weekend from college, from university, when my parents came to visit me and told me that my father was diagnosed with throat and lung cancer. And that weekend, it wasn't really easy to process, because we were there to celebrate my graduation, and to get that information, it took some time to process. And so that's why I'm asking the question from a personal standpoint. What was it for you when you were diagnosed, and what was it like for your family to hear that new information?
It's a weird thing, because in your mind, well, at the time I was like, cancer happens to someone else. It doesn't happen to you. It's like weird. And then when you get that news, I still remember the appointments with the doctor when they broke the news to me. And I just remember just totally, I kind of just wasn't listening to them anymore. It's kind of, you kind of go into your own little bubble. And I was in so much denial that I'm like, you know what, I'm not listening to this. I do not have cancer. There's just no way. And it is weird. You kind of shut yourself off a little bit, just because you just don't want to believe it. And I remember walking out from the appointment, and just my husband still asked me, he's like, what do you want to do? And because I'd taken time off work to kind of for the appointment and stuff, I'm like, I'm going back to the office. I don't want to talk about this. And it took me a while to kind of process. I mean, for me, it was a bit of a roller coaster, because I kind of went from that appointment, and then I had to go to a specialist, and everything kind of happened within 3 weeks. I went from cancer to having my leg amputated. So that part was kind of really, really quickly. So I didn't have time to kind of think about things. But it was a gradual, like, it was definitely, I had to process things and just kind of work through it. But because everything else was happening, so I had so much that I had to kind of go through and process and just kind of accept. It took me a while to kind of work through all the emotions and kind of get there. I mean, for my family point of view, it was kind of, it's scary when someone gets diagnosed with cancer. I mean, majority of us all think, oh, that person's going to die, because that's kind of the reality of it. I mean, it's always been like that a little bit. So it's kind of, you're kind of working with that and trying to be like, my husband was like super supportive, trying to be really supportive, but yet you have this cancer diagnosis, you have that in the back of your head, but trying to be positive about the whole situation, kind of working through it that way.
Yes. Yeah. I would say that my family experienced that same thought process. Like when I was told, I just assumed that it would get cured. I didn't think anything of it. I was like, oh, okay, it'll be cured, it'll be fine. And maybe that was just naivete to believe that. And, you know, I lost my father, my sister lost her father, obviously, after a couple of years. And even during that 2-year process, it's still hard to conceptualize like everything that's happening with the disease, and then you start to understand that it doesn't just get miraculously cured, right? No. It's like you don't just fingers and all of a sudden it's gone.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many elements to it too, because it's like you're curing cancer, but it's also there's a person that's trying to survive it, and it's like there's all these emotions, like you're dealing with having to live through this cancer, but then also trying to do normal things and kind of living your life as if like kind of putting it in the back of your head that you're going to survive this and just kind of keep going on with your life, but you still have that in the back of your head, if that makes sense. It's like it's such a weird like time.
It totally makes sense. And for those of you who are watching this conversation and listening to it on the podcast eventually, if you haven't gone through the process, it's really difficult to explain. Like I went to work every day, and like afterwards I would go to the hospital to see my dad. My mother was living in the hospital basically to be with him. It's just this world that you can't really fathom until you're actually in it. And even to this day, I still I use it, and I wonder if you use the process of having gone through it as an opportunity to strengthen your resolve to say, if I can get through X, I can get through this as well.
Exactly. It does. I mean, it took me a long time to see that it has made me stronger, and it has, because I've survived and I've kind of moved on, and I've been one of the lucky ones that has survived that long and all that. And it kind of, it puts things in a different perspective, but it took me a while to get there, to kind of work through all the emotions, work through everything that I was going through at the time. It's a weird thing because also, I mean, it's pretty scary, because I remember when I was because with my diagnosis, I also had to go, and I'm sure your dad went through all the same things. I had to go through a whole bunch of different scans to make sure that the cancer hadn't spread, and it's pretty scary going through that. Like I remember sitting outside the hospital in the car waiting for my appointment, and I just burst into tears because I was like, what is happening? Because you don't understand, like, what are these different scans going, you're just being prodded and poked, and it's the weirdest thing, and you kind of, in a sense, feel a little alone because no one's going through it right there, right then, and it's just like you can't explain it to anyone because you actually also don't know what's happening because you're just kind of working through the emotions.
Yeah. And so then for you, though, it seems like it was pretty rapid if you were having your leg amputated after 3 weeks. And so how did you view your amputee diagnosis then? And how do you view it today? Like when they told you we're going to have to amputate your leg, what was your in that moment, and how do you view it today?
It's weird. At the time when they told me I was going to be an amputee, I was devastated, and I was more devastated about losing part of my body than the cancer the cancer diagnosis, weirdly, because it's just like weird, like you're going to lose part of your body. And at the time I thought, that's it, I'm going to become disabled and I'm going to be in a wheelchair. And it's like you have all these factors going through your mind, but also just having to look like so different, and just like it to me at the time, because I mean I was in my 20s, so it just felt such a big deal that I was losing part of my body, and that part I really struggled to kind of accept. But if I look back at it now, I'm like, I would, and I get asked that a lot, would you change anything? And I wouldn't, because I'm glad that I went through what I did, because I do feel it's made me a stronger person, it's made me the person I am today. So I would definitely, I'm happy. It sounds weird, but I'm happy that I went through it, because I feel like I needed to do that, because it just has made me the person I am today. And it's given me a more of appreciation of life. It took me a while to accept my leg. It did. And I've always been really honest about that, because it was a struggle in the beginning. I mean, I went through like different phases, like denial was a big thing. I didn't want to be an amputee. I didn't want to be someone that's had cancer. I just wanted to be healthy and go back to work and just kind of carry on with my career. There was the other part where I was super angry, because I was like, what have I done wrong in life? Why am I getting punished? It was kind of a big thing, because I felt like I was being punished, and I was like, I'm a good person. Yes, I've got a potty mouth. else, but I'm a good person. And I was like, what the hell? And so it's weird. Like you have to kind of work through all that. So I'm always like, when anyone asks me about if I speak to other amputees or anyone that's about to go through it, I'm like, go through the emotions. It's okay. It's not, don't feel guilty, because I felt guilty for being angry. I had a lot of guilt because there wasn't a part of me that was grateful for surviving cancer. Like I was angry because I'd lost my leg and I was going through this. So instead of like, well, actually you survived cancer and you're alive, it's weird. It's a different like perspective, and it sounds weird, but it's like all these emotions I kind of had to work through. But yeah, I'm glad where I am now.
Awesome. For those of you who are just joining us, my name is Jason Bahamundi. I'm the founder and one of the co-owners of Run Try Bike magazine. We are joined by Gandhi, our other co-owner, and Jacky Hunt. And I know I asked you this in the green room, but I'm going to screw it up. I know. Hunt-Broersma.
There we go. You gotta roll the R.
So in the span of these 3 weeks, you went through a whirlwind of emotions. It was so quick from your diagnosis to the amputation, and then the time after. You were processing all these emotions. You're in your 20s, and you're just going through things that other people might not be able to understand. What clicked in your head, or rather, what changed your perspective that eventually led you on the path to becoming a runner? And how did that happen?
It was kind of, my perspective was, because I'm really stubborn, and I was so determined to show people what I was normal. Like I was like this whole thing. I wanted to be like everyone else. And I'm like, yeah, I lost my leg, but I can still do what everyone else does. And like running was kind of one of those things, because I was frustrated because there were so many things that people would just say, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. Oh, don't worry about it. You don't even try. It's fine. You're now an amputee. It was like the whole word disability was kept being thrown at me, because now you're disabled. You know, you can't do this, you can't do that. And so it was like this whole negative scenario. And I was like, you know what? No. I'm done with this now. I'm going to show what I can do. Achieve. I can. And it was kind of, it was me just fighting back at the whole stigma. And then my husband's a runner, so he was running. And the funny thing, though, to step back, is I was never a runner before losing my leg. I thought runners were crazy, and I was like, yeah, why on earth would you put yourself through that? No. But it's weird, like when you lose part of, like when I became an amputee, there were so many things like suddenly you've taken for granted. And running was like, I mean, it's like you put a pair of shoes on and you're out the door. But when you're an amputee, you have to have a certain device to be able to go out and run and stuff. And it was just like frustrating that there were so many other elements and factors that I had to think of. And that really got to me a little bit. And I was like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm like, you know what? No. And that's kind of how I started. And to be honest, I thought I'd stick with 5Ks. I was like, my first 5K, I'm totally honest, my first 5K totally sucked. It was awful. I ran, I think out of the whole 3 miles, I did a mile of running. The rest was walking. And I was like, the whole time, I'm like, what was I thinking? I was right. These runners are crazy. But there was I don't like giving up on things. So I was like, you know what? No, there has to be something, because you could see when people cross the finish line, I mean, at any running event, there is a special atmosphere to it. And I just knew there was something there. So I kind of just kept at it and just kept going and fell in love with it. And yeah, and I'm just glad I found it. And it's definitely changed my world.
How did that lead to eventually getting to something like ultra running and trail running? Because, you know, that's like a niche in itself. Like, it's not something that somebody just kind of stumbles onto from a 5K on the road.
Yeah, it was, I kind of went 5K, then the funny thing is I signed up for a half marathon, but I had actually originally signed up for a 10K, the day before the half marathon, I asked them, can I change my distance? And they just assumed I'd be going down to the 5K. I was like, no, I want to go up to the half marathon. And they're like, okay. So it kind of spurred, and I finished the half marathon. I was like, great, I did it. And then I went to a marathon. I was kind of challenging myself a little bit just to kind of push the boundaries and see what I can do. But then weirdly, I kind of went through a bit of a stage where running got a little bit boring, like roads got boring. And I was like, there's got to be more like to the running thing. And one of my friends said, well, why don't you go try trail running? And I was like, oh, that might be exciting. But then you tell people you want to go trail running on a prosthetic, and everyone's like, oh no, don't do it. It's like literally, it was hilarious. The reaction was so funny that I was like, okay, I just have to do it because of the reaction. So I went out, and because everyone was concerned I was going to fall. That was the biggest thing. Like, everyone's like, you are going to fall flat on your face. Now, let me tell you, I have fallen a few times flat on my face, but that was purely not because my prosthetic, it was purely because I was talking to someone on the trail and wasn't paying attention, and I caught a rock and I went flying very gracefully in the air, proper like hardcore like wipe out, which was fun. But and that's kind of, so I did it, and I was like, I was so impressed I was able to do this trail run that everyone said I can do. And I was like out there, and it's just like, it took me out of my comfort zone a little bit, because it's scary when everyone's telling you no, and they're telling you can't do it, and then you kind of, in the back of your head, you kind of start believing that a little bit. And I just got tired of that, and then I'm like, no, I need to go out there so I can prove it to myself that I can do it. And I did. And it was just amazing. The first trail run, I mean, it was hard, it was scary, but I came out, I didn't fall, and I was like, oh my goodness, I just did that. And then, and then I signed up for an ultra, stupidly, and then that's kind of where I kind of went into ultra running. I just fell into it, like, yeah.
By the way, prosthetic or no prosthetic, like, we all trip and fall on the trails. I'm not sure.
Exactly.
I'm talking to people all the time.
Big time, like just thrown water bottles and stuff falling out of vests when you fall, bloody, like without the prosthetic that happens.
I don't know if you know the ultra runner Gordy, who's like the big like Western Stay, like not Western, Western Stay founder. I was out on a trail run with him in Colorado, and I was chatting, and that was the biggest epic wipeout I've ever had. I literally went flying. I could see the ground, and I was like, in my head, it felt like I was going slow-mo, and I was like, this is gonna hurt. And I just went, and poor Gordy's like, and I was kind of a little bit embarrassed, because he was like this legend runner with me, and here I go flying, and he's like, yeah, it was hilarious. It was so funny.
We could tell stories all day long. So I raced Rocky Raccoon in Huntsville, Texas for a number of years.
Yeah.
And I had tried to break 19 hours, and I was on my last lap, and I was really close to breaking 19 hours, and I hit a root out there, and I went flying, and I landed just on my stomach, and the pacer said it just sounded like a basketball being popped. I just, oh! And I just up, and the adrenaline had taken over, like, and I just running again, right? And he's like, where are you going? And I'm like, we have to break 19 hours. Meanwhile, I was like, I could probably have a busted sternum, but stories all day long.
Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned was change. And so I actually wrote a note here. So how has technology changed for your prosthetic over the course of the last few years? Have you seen changes that have allowed you to become a better runner?
It's kind of yes and no. It's more like more your everyday prosthetics have definitely kind of developed a lot, because the first one I had when I first became an amputee was so heavy. They've become a lot lighter, so they move better with you, so it makes it much easier kind of that way. I mean, there's so many different running blades. Like, you have different companies doing different brands and stuff, and the first one I ran with compared to what I'm running with now, are totally two different running blades. Like the one I ran with was a more of a basic one, which is a really good way to kind of get into it. So it's a cheaper version, and it's kind of a little bit, the technology isn't fantastic in that one. Whereas the newer version it's lighter. It actually has a split toe. So it kind of makes maneuvering over rocks a little bit easier. So you don't have that, like, because what was happening was because my blade wasn't moving, that when I hit a rock, it kind of felt like my ankle was twisting the whole time because my stump is held so tight in the socket. So any like weird movement, it would just twist it all the time. So it was really painful when I was like doing that. So with the split toe, it's just so much nicer. It kind of smooths. I mean, there's loads of stuff they're still working on to kind of see if they can make it better. I predict it will probably get a little lighter, and just kind of hopefully tread on the bottom needs to kind of improve a little bit, because you kind of fly through that tread like crazy on the trails. They're definitely not made for, like, especially Arizona trails, because that's the other thing, and hopefully with being more open about like being on trails and stuff, the technology will be developed more for trail running, because all blades are basically designed for road running. That's kind of where they are, and that's why going out on trails, everyone's like, oh no, you can't take this blade, because it's basically, I'm going out on a trail with road shoes, because it's kind of the same concept. So yeah.
Yeah, like the trails out here, I live in Phoenix, we talked about, and running on trails out here is so different. I started running in the Nike Wild Horse just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And had been running in the Hoka Torrents and loved them, but I ran in the Saucony Peregrines out here, and it just did not work. Like,
no.
It's running on paper, and every rock you feel out here. So do you feel that impact, like that jarring through the prosthetic, and is that different than the running shoe that you're using?
I do feel that jarring, but luckily with the split toe, it does make it a little smoother. So it kind of that. But yeah, you literally feel everything. But it's good for me. It's different. Like I think my foot, my actual real foot, has got really hard underneath, because my shoes, I tend to have a little bit thinner shoes out on the trails, because with the blade, I can't really feel like when I'm touching. So it's kind of, I'm running blind on one side. So I have to rely a lot on my feelings. So my good foot has to it's kind of more of a sensor for me. So I can kind of feel. So I have to look at the ground a lot, but I try not to, because otherwise it kind of messes my form up a little bit. So I use my feet to kind of gauge kind of where I am, where I'm stepping and stuff. And that way it kind of helps me place my blade down, so I know where I am. So yeah, it's a bit weird.
What would you say is more challenging for you on the trails, the uphill or the downhill?
Definitely the downhill. I think I'm a little bit, I kind of like going uphill. Downhill is more, I'm not that confident on downhill yet, and especially in Arizona with the rocks, I'm a little bit more cautious, and it's more of I think I just need to practice it a little bit more, because it is weird. It's just, because once the blade goes, like it kind of propels you a little bit forward, like it helps with that. So it's kind of, you got that. So when you get a bit of speed, you can go pretty fast, and it's hard to stop with it. So it's like, once you go, you have a really hard time to kind of break at the bottom. So you'll see, like, if I'm doing hill repeats and stuff, a lot of the times, if I've got a really steep downhill, I kind of run down, but I won't stop. I need a bit of a kind of like an airplane, I guess. You need a bit of runway to kind of break yourself, because I'm not going to be able to stop.
You mentioned the crazy runners doing 5Ks, and so let's talk about a little bit of the crazy stuff that you've been doing. So talk to us about.
Well, I do easy things.
Yeah. Talk about this vision of 104 marathons in 104 days. How did that come about? Why did it come about? What happened on the 5th day?
I on social media, I had seen Alyssa had done the record for 95 days, consecutive days, and I didn't even know there was a record. I was like, oh, I had no idea. And I was like, I started thinking, I was like, oh, it would actually be quite fun to do it, like just to see. I wanted to see if I could do it because I was like, I don't know. I mean, because first, like, and then I was thinking, I'm like, how did she do 95? Like, it was like mind-boggling. But I was like, it would be fun if like someone like me could like do it. And I was like, well, okay. And then I broke the news to my husband, and it was like literally, yeah. I was like, oh, by the way, I'm doing this new crazy thing. What do you think about it? And then at the time I was like, yeah, I'm going to do 100 marathons, because you need to finish, you need to round it off to 100 at least. And it was weird because I kind of started with it and I wasn't sure, like, I didn't know if my blade would last. I didn't know am I going to mess my stump up? Is it just going to kind of, yeah, is it just going to tell me, you know what, I've done, this is the craziest thing you've ever done, and I'm like done with it. And so we kind of started, and I was like, okay, I might only get to like 10 marathons. So we'll see. This is kind of the project to see what happens. And I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised, because it's like, it just showed me again how strong our bodies are and how capable you can do so much more than what you think you can. And I mean, the first week was rough. It was challenging because it's like every day is the same, and it's like, oh, you get up and you're like, oh, I'm going to run another marathon, and my body had to. I'm like, oh, another 26.2 miles, yay! and it's like the first week, my body was kind of adjusting. Like, I was struggling with my shin, and it was like all these like things that my body was kind of adjusting. But then the second week got easier, and it kind of just it like, from a body point of view, my body adjusted really, really well. The issue I had was, after the first week, my stump had swollen up so much that I didn't fit into my running blade anymore. And luckily, the blade I'm running with now currently is like, it was one that I had like 3 years ago. So it was an older one, but luckily the socket was much wider. So I could, thank goodness I could fit into that, because that was the other issue. Luckily I had that as a backup. Otherwise the project would have been over, because I'm like, well, I can't run. So I kind of had to switch legs. So we had that. And then it was just kind of, I was surprised that my body just kind of just adapted. The thing I struggled with the most was mental. It was so mental. I got to like halfway point at marathon number 50, and I was like, you know what, I'm done. I just like, literally, my mind had given up. It's like, I'm done. I'm like, 50 is a good distance. Come on, 50 marathons, 50 days, great. And
miles.
Pardon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, yeah, I could be a hero. Woo-hoo. And it was weird. But I got annoyed with myself, because I was like, no. And I swear I must have looked like some crazy person, because I was talking to myself a lot, like doing these pep talks. It's like, come on, suck it up. You can do this, just keep doing. And so then I kind of just started focusing on like the next mile. Like I would play these stupid games on myself. Like, it's weird. Like, your mind is so powerful. Yeah. I would just get to the next mile. And then I get to the next mile. And then literally I'd be running around my kid's school, and then 1 mile, and I go, whoa, I did 1 mile. Yay! And then I get to the next mile, woo, 2 miles, and like, that's how it went. And like, these kids were like, what is this woman doing? And it's just like, that kind of just helped and just kind of got me. And then before you knew it, I had run another marathon. So it was kind of just playing these tricks and just kind of getting through it. Eventually, you kind of, by the time I got to like day 80, I was like, you know what, I'm so close now. I just need to keep going. And it's just like, then you're tired. I mean, I was exhausted, because life goes on. I mean, my kids were still going to school, coming home, homework, dinner needs to be made. It was kind of all those things, like life went on. So it was kind of like you kind of living to the point where you're like, oh, I can't wait to get to finish now. Like, how far is it? But also you don't want to quit now because you're so close to the goal post. And then day 105 was magical. Well, it was weird. It was weird because I got into such a routine that I was like, oh, maybe I kind of feel like I'm missing something. Like, I feel awkward. I feel a bit naked. I'm like, so it's kind of like feeling like you need to keep going. But the weird thing was like my body was like doing really well. And then like the second or third day of my recovery, like after I'd stopped, my body started hurting really badly. So I was like, what the hell? So I'm like, I should have just kept going.
Just keep delaying the pain.
Yeah, just keep delaying the pain, denial.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you about that is because, you know, one of the cool things was that I saw you actually start this thing because we met like a year ago. And then I saw like one day you were like, I'm going to do this marathon thing. I'm like, cool, I'm going to follow along and support you and cheer you on. And then like, it was just like amazing watching this thing like start from like something you were just doing to like blowing up in real time, like 50 onwards, like all of a sudden like Boston is inviting you to do the Boston Marathon and like people are interviewing you. And so tell me what it was like for like that last 20 or 25 marathons when all of a sudden like it's starting to like blow up and like all of a sudden all eyes are on you and like and also to add to that, like you were gonna do I think 100 originally, and then two other females I think it was were going after the record, and then I think you did 104 because you were trying to finish out the month or something like that. Yeah. So tell me about all that.
Yeah, I still regret. I kind of should have just gone to 110. I'm like, I don't know why. Yeah. 104 was on the weekend. It was a nice time to finish. I'm like, darn, I should have gone to 110. But it was weird because it kind of took me off. Like I wasn't expecting it to blow up like it did. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. Everyone was really supportive, but it was tricky to kind of fit everyone in. Like everyone wanted to kind of chat and stuff. So it was kind of, it was tricky. The hardest part was also when I was in Boston, because I had to fly out to Boston, and then when I got to Boston, I had to run a marathon, and then they had a whole bunch of press, so we had to interviews there, and then I run Boston, and then the next day I had to do another Boston, more interviews, plus I had to fit in another marathon, and then get on a flight. So it was like, it was such a whirlwind, like trying to fit everyone in, and just like it just went crazy, but. You know what? It was amazing that we got to raise so much money for a good cause, and just the support was phenomenal. And yeah, it was great. I just wish I'd gone to 110. I should have done that.
Folks, one of the things that happened at this event was I think it was over $100,000, $200,000, and I think RX Bar was also matching the donations as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that was phenomenal. And literally, they contacted me the day before I was going to do my last marathon and said, "Can we jump on this? And whatever donations you get in, we'll double it." And I was like, "You do know that tomorrow I'm finishing, right?" I was like, what? And it was just phenomenal. And it was just like everyone just kind of just jumped in, and we got a whole bunch of new donations and everything. And just, yeah, it was phenomenal.
So you go through cancer, very, very tough. We talk about that. You go through 104 marathons, very, very tough, and how to process that, which now leads to the next thing, which is 6 days across the years here in Phoenix. Like, do you look at that and go, 6 days? I ran 104 marathons.
I do kind of. It does. It puts it in a different perspective. But I'm kind of going in it just to, what I've learned is just to kind of embrace it, have fun with it, don't stress about it. Any race you go into, you never know what it's going to be. Like, you don't know what's, like, I can show up at 6 days and end up just doing one loop because I have prosthetic issues. I have anything can happen. So I feel like I try not to stress about that. I'm like, you know what, I've got my goal that I want, and that's kind of where I'm going. And if I hit my goal, I'll be great. If I don't, then yeah, that's fine too. But just have fun with it, because that's the other thing is I'm always reminded that I get to do this. So I always try to run with gratitude. And yeah, running doesn't always go your way. It never does, but life doesn't either. And it's like we still get to do this. It is like a lot of people would love to be out there doing it and they can't. And it's like, so I always remember that and just kind of, yeah, just have fun with it.
So I think one of the things that a lot of athletes don't do things because they have a fear of failure. Yeah. Oh, I can't sign up for this Ironman because I may not make it. I can't register for this 10K because I may not make it. Fear of failure, has that kind of gone away because of what you've gone through? And again, 104 marathons, and you can't always control everything, right? Yeah. So is fear of failure kind of just one that doesn't even happen anymore?
No, it is. It's just one of those things where I'd rather try and see what happens than not try at all, because I just feel it makes life really boring if you don't just push your limits and stuff, and just, what have you got to lose? That's always what I even say that to my kids. I'm like the worst with my kids. I'm like, oh, what do you got to lose? Come on, mommy ran 104 marathons. Come on.
That actually brings me to the mantra that you sort of adopted. I think it came from Courtney Dowalter. I might be wrong about this, but you've sort of adopted this mantra in 2022. I can do hard things. Tell me about why that spoke to you, why you adopted it, and what it means to you.
Because when I started out with it, I had the whole thing, even on my page, I said that we're capable of so much more than what we think we are. And then I was like, you know what, it is true that, because it was, when I was struggling a lot with some of the marathons, I was like, you've got this, you can do hard things. And that's kind of where it came from. It was like, I kept using this mantra in my head, you can do hard things, you can do hard things. And I kind of went with it, and it kind of just felt right to kind of do that. So that's like my mantra for life now, is like, you can do hard things.
So the last thing on your bio says you're a coach. And so the question is, tell us about your coaching philosophy. Does I can do hard things play into your coaching philosophy?
It does. I always try to be really encouraging, because everyone's limits are different. Everyone has different goals. Everyone has different, and I believe just take one step at a time, and just have fun with it. I always believe you need to have fun with it. If you're not enjoying it, then there's no point of doing it anymore. And it is and I always kind of repeat it. I'm like, you're capable of more than what you think you are. Stop being scared. Just keep going. Just do it. You've got to kind of get out of your comfort zone. So I encourage people to get out of their comfort zone a little bit. And whether that is running your first 5K, running your first trail race, it is everyone's comfort zones are very different. And that's kind of where I work with, what my comfort zone is very different to someone else's.
That's awesome. So we know Across the Years is coming up for you. What other events do you have coming up in 2023 that we can cheer you on for?
I've got Amstead 100. So I've got that in April. And then I've got Vermont 100, 2 months after that. So it'll be good. I thought, you know what, my legs are going to be good. So yeah, it's pretty fine. And then I've got Trans Rockies, which was a postponement from this year. So I'm moving that. So I've got to go and do that, which will be fun. I'm looking forward to that.
I'll see you there as a volunteer.
Oh, you're going to be there? Oh, yeah.
As a volunteer.
Cool.
I'll be there on camp crew.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, it's such a fun race. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
And then I'm kind of working on logistics to kind of go back to Moab 240, because I do have unfinished business there. I have to go finish the race.
That's awesome. And, running hundreds 2 months apart, you'll be fine. I made a mistake because I don't read race direction athlete guides, and I had to run 2 100 milers 14 days apart. So 2 months, you got plenty.
It's actually be fine, right? Yeah, it'll be fine.
Problem.
Wait, I can do hard things.
That's
There we go. Come on, I've got it even on my arm. I can do hard things.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we jump into our rapid fire questions, where can people find you besides here on Instagram?
Instagram, I'm on Twitter too. So also the same, NC Runner Jacky. And yeah, I've got info on my website, which is ncrunnerjacky.com. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely get you booked back on, especially after you go through these events coming up, and maybe we'll do a live conversation while we're at across the year. I can run.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be fun. Yeah, because we're not going to be doing much.
No.
We're just going to be. Yeah, it's a big
yeah, you'll have to do it, Jason, because I'll be mumbling and behind Jacky on the rope. So
yeah, I'm going to be pulling, so that's fine. It'll be good. You got to get that on camera. I'm not sure if that will be classified as cheating. Do you think they'll disqualify us?
I don't know if that qualifies as mewing, but
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not actually carrying your gear. I'm only carrying you. It's a big no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like a fine line of rules, right?
So for our rapid fire, let's jump into this. When you're running, are you listening to music, podcasts, or nothing at all?
I do mostly music until I get bored with it, and then I kind of do nothing, which was interesting during the 104 marathons because there is just so much that you can be in your own head. I was getting tired of my own mind. I was like, yeah, no, I can't do this anymore.
So for music, favorite genre and favorite artist in that genre?
I'm a big country girl. I like country music. I like Blake. So yeah, yeah.
So are you a fan of The Voice show? Do you watch it?
I am. Well, my daughter is, so I end up watching it with her. So
right.
yeah.
Here's the big one. This will determine whether or not Across the Years goes successfully for the three friends. Pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
Yay.
Oh boy. That's it. You'll have to rely on.
Is that like 10 yays? And that's like 10 yays in a row, isn't it, Jason?
Yay for pineapple!
How about Peeps? Are they a real candy? Yes or no?
Peeps. I've never had Peeps.
Keep it that way.
Yeah, I've never tried Peeps, so I don't know if it's a real candy or not.
It's not. You're good. What about candy corn? Is candy corn a real candy or
no? It's the most disgusting candy ever. Who made that? What were they thinking?
They had extra candle wax laying around. They figured awful. They actually put out a bacon flavored one late last
year. No. Did you try it?
No.
No. Okay, slip in. I'm going to find the bacon one and bringing it to Across the Years. We're going to have that as a snack.
Bacon, candy corn and pickle juice. And all the ultra runner food.
Like when you give when you see Irish people eating peanut butter, their reactions. Have you ever seen that YouTube video?
No.
We'll have to do that. Oh, you have to go watch the YouTube video of, I think it's like Irish people eating peanut butter. It's the fun thing. It'll be like that with the bacon candy corn. So, red vines. Are you familiar with red vines?
No. What are red vines?
Twizzlers?
Yeah. Twizzlers. Yeah, sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends on the day. Like I'm like, yeah, I could do without them.
Black or red?
Red. Definitely red.
Black is out altogether.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely red.
We're back on the right track. We're hitting the hill.
Did I get bonus points there?
Yeah.
There we go.
Circus peanuts.
Pardon?
Have you heard of circus peanuts?
Yes.
Good or bad?
Good.
What?
I love them. They're good.
It's like this Amazon packages your products in when they ship it to you. It's like styrofoam, orange styrofoam.
Oh, there goes my bonus points down the drain. Ah.
What about red velvet? Red velvet a real flavor, or is it just chocolate cake with red dye?
I don't think it's a real flavor.
I I agree with you. It's just
I
chocolate.
don't think it's a real. It's like weird. It's no.
What's your favorite kind of cake? Or are
Chocolate
you
cake.
chocolate cake?
Chocolate, 100%.
What about pie? Do you enjoy pie?
Not really. No. If I make it myself, yes. No, I'm not a big pie girl. I like chocolate cake. That's my like go-to.
So you ran 104 marathons and you had to recover from that. What was your favorite recovery meal, either during or even after?
It's not a very good recovery meal, but I had donuts. Does that count?
Perfect recovery meal.
Ooh, yum.
Yeah, that was my favorite. Donuts.
I love it. Are you a movie person?
I do. Yeah, we do.
What's your favorite movie?
True Romance.
True Romance. Oh, I never asked you what's your favorite movie, Om?
Oh, my favorite movie?
No, I've never watched Romance. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, what?
It's a like this. It's a classic. You have to watch it. It's like on the like Pulp Fiction. Kind of
Oh,
You have to watch True Romance. It's very. You've got to have a stomach for it though, because there's a lot of blood.
my favorite movie is Casablanca, so that kind of tells you a little bit about who I am. A little different than True Romance, clearly.
Just a little bit. I should have chosen a better movie. Sorry, darn it.
Two more. What's your favorite book?
My favorite book is The Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela.
Awesome. And then finally, what's your favorite TV show?
My favorite TV show is Dexter.
Romance.
I'm gonna sound like some psycho. I'm not a psycho, really. This is just
I run 104 marathons in 104 days for fun. I'm gonna run 6 days around a 1 mile loop. I love True Romance, but no, not psycho at all.
I've said too much now.
Jacky, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you across the years. We'll do a quick couple of cameo shots while we're out there.
I'll try not to be too silly.
We look forward to following you throughout the year, and please come back and join us.
Will do. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.